All right. Good evening, everybody. It is a beautiful Sunday evening, and the cleric is in his confessional. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all very much for being here tonight. If you do not know who I am, my name is Alec the Cleric. I am a Borderlands and Wonderlands content creator. I am a YouTube editor. I am a podcaster. And I'm an all around funny old dad who has no idea what he's doing when he plays games, but we still have a good time. Anyway, welcome to episode 7 of The Confessional. It's hard to believe that we've already been doing this for 7 episodes. I am having an absolute blast doing this, and I hope that you guys are enjoying it as well. If you would like to join us live for The Confessional, it is every Sunday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here at twitch.tv / Alec the Cleric, or you could check us out on YouTube at Alec the Cleric if you happen to miss the live broadcast. If you are here during the live broadcast, though, don't forget, you, as an audience member, have the ability to participate. All you have to do is show up live, ask your questions in the chat, and we will be more than happy to answer them for you live here on the air. Don't forget also, you can follow us at ClericCast on Twitter to stay up to date with all things confessional and see who we've got coming up for the next episode. All right. Enough with the boring intro stuff. Let's get right into it tonight. My guest tonight is an absolutely incredible streamer that I am so excited to get to introduce to you guys. He is an amazing content creator. He is a VTuber, which is very interesting. I'm very excited to get to talk to that. And he focuses in on Indy Games specifically. So this is an area that we have yet to touch, but I'm very excited to get to talk to him. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Steam Gray. Steam, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing great, Alec. Doing great. And oh my goodness, making me blush. Everybody knows it's easy to get me to blush, get me to break down in a stream. It's very easy to do. No challenge at all.
Well, hopefully we won't make you break down too hard tonight. Not too hard anyway. But why don't we go ahead and start off by you just kind of introducing yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What kind of content do you create? And yeah, just introduce yourself a little bit.
All right then. I am Steam Gray. As many people know and like to introduce myself, the underscore in my name is silent. My most middle names is not used very often. Who I am, but that's just me, easygoing. Like to say, pretty much try to emulate what I feel like, just being very chill, just doing what I feel is, just makes me happy, but also just makes me smile. And like to share that when I stream. And like I said, I do stream indie games. Most of my content that bounces around. I do whatever games I feel like I want to share with people that I know that I enjoyed, and most people may not have the time to enjoy themselves. So, hey, if I can use my time to help them with that, that's what I do. And of course, also doing art on Fridays as well, but also indie games because that's my passion. That's my love and joy.
It's awesome, man. So let's get to the first thing right off the bat, which should be the most very obvious thing, because you are the first guest that we've had here on the Confessional who we're not seeing their actual face on camera, because you do what is called Vtubing. For those in our audience who might not know what Vtubing or PNG tubing or any of those different tubing variations are, could you just give us a quick rundown of what it is and just a brief introduction to VTubing?
Oh, certainly. So, as it implies, VTubing or virtual YouTuber or virtual avatar, virtual streaming is in place of actual physical face, like Alec and most other people do. Any VTuber will actually use a avatar, an image that either they've had commissioned or in some cases they create themselves, either through giving concept art to a modeler or artist to create the avatar for them. We use that in place of physical face, mostly because it's fun to get into, but also for some of us it just helps us to get that, myself personally, because I feel like it's a good way to keep myself separated from being myself the streamer, but also myself the person, even though there's not too much difference between the two. I in particular am, as you were saying, Alec, I am a PNG VTuber. I use a PNG avatar. So I actually I don't have some like fancy rigs set up for animated expressions or the like. I try to get as much across as I can with my voice. in addition to like eventually I would like to get to the point where I've got, all these emotions set up for with avatar images and the like, but it takes time.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I could only imagine because that. I mean, already that sounds overwhelming and extensive to me. Just to try to get that. I mean, it's hard enough just putting my face on a webcam. I can't imagine the amount of effort that it takes to go through creating all of that. So, for your area specifically, you said you're a PNG tuber. So, what goes into becoming a PNG tuber? Like, what did you have to do to get started with that? Like, how does the avatar process work? Because obviously, when you speak, your avatar opens his mouth or moves a little bit and stuff. What's that process like?
So at its core, it pretty much the whole basis is around. I have a program that I use. It's called VideoTube Mini. It's what actually a fair number of other VTubers use. Well, those of us who don't, we don't have the budget for a big old rig, animated rig for our avatar. It just bounces between four different states. It'll have four different states. It'll have one with the eyes open, mouth closed, and then variations of that. So whenever I speak, like anybody can see on the podcast right now, when I'm speaking, my character is not vibrant. He has the mouth open. But if I stop speaking, the mouth's closed. And I've used the program to add a little bit of blinking animation of sorts. It just bounces between the images. I mean, that's what the essence of it is for PNG VTuber. We have a very basic avatar, and we'll have very basic states. Though some of us have actually learned how to use a program to the point where you can add some more emotions in there. It's fascinating, even just for as long as I've been using the avatar, that other people they've discovered all these other different ways to use the program, and there's other programs out there. Just VideoTube Mini's the simplest, easiest to use as far as a free program goes.
That's really interesting. I mean, and like you said, the whole process is very fascinating to me too. Just like how these programs work and everything like that. So, what got you into VTubing specifically? I know you mentioned a little bit. It was a way to kind of separate yourself, your off camera life from your on camera life. But like, what drew you to it? Like, what kind of got you started in it? What introduced you to it?
Well, and this is going far back. So remember it because I think I did the Avatar. What I want to say. I know it was before Wonderlands came out. I want to say like either February, maybe February or March. I had started it, but I had been watching other streamers, and I noticed that there'd be VTubers that had like this Avatar, and I always thought to myself, well, that's a good way for those who don't want to feel like I do, that want to have that sort of separation, but at the same time want to still be able to have a way for their audience, their community to connect with them. So I figured, you know what? Why don't I see if I can come up with some sort of like physical representation? And funny enough, I had a former coworker who was working in retail. I talked to her a little bit in regards to coming up with an idea, and she came up with the original sketch and was like, you know what? What if I do something like that? And just it took me, I want to say I spent a day or two because it was using just regular paint program to come up with it. But then I thought, you know what, this would be really cool because people can see like they can see that it's not just like a voice playing a video game; it's somebody who's actually playing the video game. See, get an essence of the emotions, even though I can't show all of them as much as I would like to. There's still enough of it that I hope that they can draw that connection, that can form that bond like between streamer and the community.
That's really cool. Yeah, and I guess that leads kind of into my next question too, because one of the biggest parts of being a streamer and all of that is connection with your community. And I think a lot of people kind of have this misconception of like, oh, it's easy. I'll just become a VTuber or I'll just become a PNG tuber, and like that, like this is somehow an easier method. Do you find that it is actually harder to connect with an audience because they can't see your face and your expressions and your emotions like somebody with a face cam would?
I'd say depending on I'd say for the most part, yeah, it is a bit more it is actually more difficult because there's only so much emotion that you can show with a physical representation with the avatar. I
Mm.
mean, I've got a few where I can show mostly like it can show just mostly myself talking and maybe blinking. There's also, there's various emotions that need to be shown, like anger and the like. It takes a lot to actually come up with the additional images, and which, of course, that also translates to anybody who isn't a PNG VTuber, like other VTubers.
Hmm.
They actually have they have these their entire avatars rigged for to show all their emotions. I mean, they use face cam tracking and the like, but there's just so much that's involved with it, and it's
Hmm.
just and for me, it's just like seeing just my little section of VTube, my little section that I'm in the VTuber community is like, holy shit, but there's just so much involved. It's like, yeah, so that's why I always try to make sure I, you know, put as much, not put as much emotion, but I let as much as myself show through my voice as possible. I mean, even in the future, if I somehow manage to get like an actual like 2D live model, it's like I know it's still going to take a lot because the camera has to still be able to read my face, has to be able to see all the gestures, all the body language. It still has to read that all.
I gotcha. Now you mentioned before like this VTuber community and VTubing obviously as technology has advanced and everything like that, it has become a lot more popular. Is it like do you guys bounce ideas off of each other and stuff like that? Is there a bit of a community around VTubing besides like kind of the bigger names that do it like but within I mean, are there other VTubers that you talk to and bounce ideas off of and stuff?
Oh, certainly. I've actually, for the past couple months, I've actually sort of become a part of a branch of the Filipino VTuber community, the smaller end of it. I should say the smaller end of the pool. But yeah, I've got a good couple friends, Mahari, Nikki Kun, Hello Mirai. A lot of us who do use VTuber avatar, we use like PNG avatars. A couple of us do have some 2D live models, but we do bounce ideas off of each other. Also come up with like, hey, if we want to do collabs, we're like, okay, well, what games do we have in common? What games do we not have in common? I mean, like, what is our time zones? I mean, we do bounce ideas off of each other. Also, if especially if we like want to do any collabs, I think that's the biggest thing because it's so much fun, so much more fun to actually have games to play, or rather, friends to play games with. I actually did a collab recently. It was a couple weeks ago. It's myself, my friend Schoberg. Let's see, a couple of us was Airthin, and I think one other person. We did a raft collab, and
Oh,
it was just
cool.
fun because we all had our little avatars, it's little pictures on Schoberg's stream, and all of us who else were streaming that day. And it was just fun just to be able to show each other our expressions. Like we still interacted just like you would see in any sort of collab. If we were just regular streamers, there's no real difference outside of we just have a little different way we show ourselves as far as like, instead of a face cam, we use our avatars. It's just how we get comfortable as far as streaming goes.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I think just like VC, and because it has become, kind of it's the new kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, it's kind of the new hotness right now where like, since technology is getting a lot better, a lot more people are trying this kind of things, but it's good to know that there is a community out there and there are people that are willing to kind of help newer people into this whole thing because it might be kind of the wave of the future as it were because it's definitely much more technology minded than traditional streaming is.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. It's actually been I'll always be watching various streams, but also have a lot of each larger names to smaller names. It just astounds me how they each have their avatars each have their own unique style to them, their own expressions, and just it's fascinating because I know for a lot of them they just do it because it's easier for them, or maybe there's conditions that prevent them. I know there is one VTuber in the community. Some people might know her name, Iron Mouse. Due to her chronic illness, I don't think she feels comfortable, or at least that's my opinion, was she doesn't feel comfortable being able to do it. So VTubing allows people like her who maybe they just aren't able to show their face because it's, medical conditions or the like. So it's not comfortable for them or it's difficult for them to do so. So having a virtual avatar makes it a lot easier, but also gives
Gotcha.
them that sense of security.
Yeah, yeah, that makes total sense to me. I like that. I like that a lot. So, one thing that being and specifically your end of the whole VTubing spectrum and PNG tubing, like you have to use your voice a lot more to convey what's going on. You know, because you don't have an avatar that completely melds with your whole facial expressions and everything like that. Is that something that you've always just been pretty good at doing, or was this something that you had to learn how to use your voice more once you started doing PNG tubing?
Oh, that's a good question because I'd honestly say it's a bit of a combination of both. I
Mm,
mean, I've always felt like I've had a good voice as far as like reading stories or reading out lines, singing and the like. I've always felt I had a good enough voice for it, but like starting to get into streaming, it's like, okay, well, I have to put more emphasis. It's like I
mm,
remember being taught in like choir and the like. It's like you always got to put more emphasis in your voice. So as a VTuber, I have to put a lot more emphasis to. It's like I want to make sure that every single ounce of emotion, if I'm surprised by something in a video game, I show that surprise in my voice. Is like, even if it sounds over the top, that just I want to make sure that all the emotion is there. Everybody can tell that. Yes, he's actually surprised. Like he was not expecting that to come out from the corners. Like what the fudge? I was not expecting this kind of technical difficulty and shit about happening.
oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that. So obviously, a big part of VTubing is having your personal avatar and everything. And I understand that, like you said before, that you drew your own personal avatar. When did you get? And your avatar is amazing, by the way. I love this character design that you've come up with. Um, when did you kind of get into art, and did you have a background in art before you started doing this, and kind of how did that come about?
I'll it, I'll say not as much as because I always think of art as both written art as well as physical visual art.
Mm.
So I'll say on the as a whole, yes, because I count more of my creative writing ability and the like as a strong foundation for actually doing digital art. But as far as physical art, digital visual art, it's only been really recently, this past year, I would say, especially like the past couple of months, is when I actually started fully getting into art. And when I first came up with my first version of this avatar, which was I didn't have any of the I didn't have Clip Studio Paint, which is what I use for my art. I didn't have that available, so I couldn't. So I was stuck with using just regular old Paint program, regular old Microsoft Paint to come up with the avatar. But I was so surprised by myself just how like soothing and how like freeing it felt just to do it up. And then this one actually came about before Wonderlands came out, so Wonderlands inspired it to a degree. And I just decided, like what would happen if I were to like put my avatar as if they were like Fate Maker's like, okay, well, let's go with this idea. Let's see where this design takes me. But yeah, it definitely takes time. I want to say this one took because I had to go back and I had to make because I'm PNG VTuber. I have to use different images for blinking and whatnot. I had to bounce between all four images, make sure that all of them are lined up, make sure that there's nothing off in the terms of okay, is the image for this one too high or too low? It took a lot of time and effort, but it's very rewarding in the end.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. So tell us a little bit about your avatar because obviously that is something that is a huge part of being a VTuber, like creating this kind of character that you use to represent yourself. So you already mentioned kind of where the original sketches and stuff came from, but what is the inspiration behind your character? Because there's obviously a very kind of obvious water theme and stuff going on. So tell us a little bit about this avatar and what it represents to you and why you've chosen this avatar to be your representation here on Twitch.
Well, funny enough, part of it's connected to my screen name, Steam Gray, because originally it was just I wanted something that was simple, straightforward, but also felt would reflect me myself. And I always thought that I tend to try and adapt to, like at work, I tend to try and adapt to the situation, adapt to when I was in retail working with customers, I try to adapt to, fit what I thought they needed as far as, questions, answers, information. So I thought, like, I always remember that quote from Bruce Lee, like, be like water, form without form. It's like, okay, you know what? That honestly fits me really well. Just trying to adapt to, like, be better. And it just went from there. Ironically, the actual physical inspiration was there's a game called Starbound, similar to Terraria, and one of the races are called Nova Kids. So pretty much they're like living stars,
Hmm.
but in a cowboy with cowboy outfit. And like it's like what that suits me. But what if instead of was like instead of plasma, what if it was just water, steam, various states of water? It's like what that would fit me perfectly, and that's actually what gave birth to the idea and just remained like that ever since. Just that idea of, simple traveler, different states of water, just like trying to share his knowledge and like, and I felt it represented me, like suited me very well. Ironically enough, it's also one of my astrological signs was being water,
Oh, no
because
way.
yeah, it's because I was born on July 22nd. It's actually depending on which astrology book you're looking at, whatnot, it's generally the cusp, so it's between water and fire. So it suited me perfectly. Like, you know what? That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense.
That's so cool. I love that how that lined up like that for you. That's perfect. And it's almost got this kind of like, with the vest and the gadget you've got on your back, you've got kind of this
Mhm.
like steampunk type feel to it too, which
Yeah.
I really dig. I'm a huge steampunk fan, so I love it. I absolutely adore your avatar. Let's go ahead and we're going to take our first question from the community here. This is going to come from Captain Spalding, and it kind of leads into the next facet of your content creation here as well. He wants to know, as an indie gamer, is there a particular genre that you tend to gravitate toward?
Oh, ooh, and hey, oh, Captain Spaulding, how goes it? Ooh, that's a good one because I mean, indie games are my passion. It's what I originally started. I wanted to be a streamer to actually showcase indie games because I felt like so many of them go overlooked and just underestimated. But there's a lot of really great gems out there. As far as genre goes, I typically because I've actually got a look at my library. I'd say I typically tend to lean towards combination of RPG and usually a roguelite of some kind.
Hmm.
But it's mostly like RPG, anything with a good story to it's what I lean towards, but also roguelites, just because there's always that fun of going through the game, seeing what you've unlocked as far as your progress and your serial goes, and then using that to further yourself and see what else you can unlock. But I also do enjoy the good survival game as well.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I love roguelites. Roguelites are a passion of mine when it comes to indie games. I absolutely adore that genre. So you and I are on the same page there. So what kind of got you into indie games as a whole? Because, or actually, let's start here because I feel like this is a little bit better for those that might not be totally um, up to speed on terminology and stuff like that. What qualifies in your mind a game to be an indie game? Like, what does that mean?
For me, I've always felt that indie game has to be a game that's been developed by a smaller studio. So I'll use Dead Cells as a great example. Let
Mm,
me see if I can find it because Dead Cells was originally it was a very small group that created. Let me see. Yeah, Motion Twin is the developer publisher. They were like a very small studio. We're talking like I think when they started off maybe 5 or 6 people and then slowly expanded. But anything like that, I've always felt has been what I define as an indie game, just something that's done by a smaller studio that's not as well known,
mm,
and more importantly, it's nothing that's like heavily associated with a triple A studio or the like. Risk of Rain 2, I'll still call an indie because that started off based off of Risk of Rain. That was an
gotcha.
indie studio game. But that's what I've always felt is defines to me as an indie game. It's something that's smaller, it's under the radar. You don't recognize it because of developer or publisher. You recognize it because of its art style, because of its unique look to it, the music and everything to it.
So is that kind of what drew you to indie games in general? Was just how they were kind of these small passion projects, or what kind of got you hooked right away on playing indie games?
I'd definitely say it was just it's seeing like playing the game and then I felt the passion. I could feel like the effort. I could feel like all that was put into it, and it just stood out to me more than like your say your regular AAA title. I'd say like Halo series, for example. It
Mm.
just like when first one of the early ones I can remember playing indie wise was Shovel Knight, and that one I really loved to play, and it was just fascinating to me just to see like this retro inspired indie title, and it's like I could feel it and I could see that there was like a lot of effort put into it. At the same time, I had so much fun. It was like, okay, this is a real challenge. It sets itself apart from, the mainstream titles. It's what really catches my eye.
I gotcha. Yeah, Shovel Knight was one that I think a lot of us probably experienced, being one of the first indie games that like really went quote unquote viral that I can remember was like Shovel Knight or Spelunky.
Oh yes.
Um, uh, Gosh, what were some of the other like? I mean, Dead Cells was one that I always played. The Hollow Knight.
Oh yes,
Um,
Hollow Knight.
I don't know if you'd consider like Ori and the Blind Forest to be something like that too, but
I
that
would
was another
consider
one.
that one. I always considered like I would consider that one a smaller title because, well, indie title because to me it doesn't have that weight that like oh it's important because of it the being associated with AAA studio. It's more it stands out because of like I said before the art style, just that sense of that it's not this is gonna be something that catches your eye because there's not like a big name associated with it.
Hmm.
It's a small name just making putting itself out there just to show what it has to offer.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. So when you're looking to pick up a new indie game or a new title, because obviously, like if anybody goes on the Steam store or anything like that, there's like a million options out there as far as small, kind of, not picked up games. Is there, other than the genre, like, is it the art that usually will draw you to a game, or what do you think draws you to it other than just the genre of where it falls?
It's usually one of three things, if not two or three, or all three of them. It'll be the art style is what catches my eye because it'll stand out. It's like there's something about it that looks unique, that looks memorable, and even when I'm not thinking about the game, if I suddenly pops up to my mind, it's like, wait, I can associate with that one. Like,
Mm.
for example, I'll use Dreamscaper. Dreamscaper is a really good indie roguelite. It's in the same sort of formula as Hades, except Dreamscaper, none of the characters have any sort of facial features to them. It's a very blank face, but you can read their dialogue and you just put yourself in there further. And it's like that, and then also the soundtrack will always stand out to me because it's something unique. It's something they put a lot of effort into. And then third, of course, being to me, it has to have some sense of a good story, even if it's just like a simple, orig- not so much an original, but a simple, I'd say like typical fantasy story.
Mm.
That's fine as long as it like delivers some twists and turns that I don't see coming that I don't predict too easily because too easily I'll watch a movie or something and it's like I'll guess what the twist is because it's so stereotypical. It just follows that same routine and pattern. With the
Yeah.
indie titles, like you'll see it and then you'll see the story, but then you start wondering, okay, where is this leading to next? It has you asking more questions to it.
I got you. I got you. So for you, then, story is a pretty important piece of the puzzle, as far as your experience goes. Do you think that's because of your background in creative writing that you tend to attach to story in games more than necessarily like the gameplay, or do you even feel that you attach to story more than gameplay?
To do attach myself more to the story, and yeah, a fair bit of it is being a creative writer and just like having written so many. I've got countless story ideas here and there, but it's just putting myself in there as the reader and allowing myself to explore this world that somebody else has created, like a whole team or maybe a single person has created, and just putting myself into that story and seeing how things play out. It just fascinates me because no two people will tell the same story the same way. They'll always they always tell it different ways. They'll put different emphasis here and there, and it's incredible to see. And I'll use Dreamscaper again and Hades as both examples. They both have similar styles to them. They're both okay, roguelites. When you die, your character actually goes back. In the
Mm,
case of Dreamscaper, your character wakes back up. In the case of Hades, you go back to the palace. But then they trying to think of what the word they diverge from each other. They show different ways that they both approach the same formula. Like you'll
gotcha.
be able to actually have an entire town of sorts to explore. In Dreamscaper, you have different NPCs, like tons more you can speak to. Hades, you have the palace. Yeah, you have this and that you can talk to, but it's very localized. It's very centralized into one location. But yeah, definitely, it's yeah. I'm always a fan of the story. That's always one of the biggest points for me. Though I will add on the little the little but phrase to it that it's mostly the indie games that I look for more in the story than I will AAA titles. Because some titles I don't stories like okay, it's important, but it's not like okay, if the story's absolutely horrible, I'm not gonna play. It's like if the story's enough there that it keeps me going, that's fine. It doesn't have to blow me out of the water. Like Wonderland story, okay, that's fine. I don't need it to be something fantastic,
Right.
something oh my goodness. But now with the title like Horizon Forbidden West, Horizon Zero Dawn, that one definitely had me going with the story as a AAA title. But I tend to look at indie titles and AAA titles differently when it comes to the stories. Like AAA, I know that story is one of the strong suits, but more than likely it's going to be the gameplay and the art style. Indie games has to have a heavy part of it be the story. Otherwise, I mean, what's the point of playing it? I mean, they're already putting themselves out there. I expect actually an indie game to put a lot of effort into their story.
Gotcha. Very cool. Very cool. Well, we got another question from the community here. I believe Binmi kind of read my mind. Binmi wants to know, what was your favorite indie game to play and why?
Oh, okay, okay. That one's actually an easy one because I can answer that. I can answer that on two levels because there's two of them that like they're pretty much tied for favorite, and I'd say favorite of all time. Oh dang it! Oh yeah, oh dang it. There's three of them. I'd say the top one would have to be Dead Cells because
Mm,
it was just so much fun and it appealed to me not just because of the art style being pixelated, but the idea of like sort of like the Souls-esque Castlevania Metroidvania hybrid game and then just being able to challenge myself to see how fast I could get through levels without getting hit or dealing as much damage as possible and actually aim for like speed running.
mm,
I'm talking about back before Dead Cells introduced the idea of okay, your doors that have your extra rewards, they're not locked behind. Like you won't get this. You always have to have that time limit that you have to hit. I was like, oh no, you can either do the time limit or you can kill this many monsters, and then you get your bonus rewards depending. But yeah, that
gotcha.
one I spent hours on that one on both PC and I'd say more on the Switch than PC. My coworkers back when I was working retail, they're every time they would catch me on break, and it's like, this is for like for solid first 3 years of working. They would just catch me in the break room, and right there. I'd be playing away on my Switch, just playing Dead Cells, and like seeing how fast I can get through the level before I have to go back to work. It was insane to think about. That one still holds a really good place in my heart. That's because it was that challenge, that feeling of, okay, this is something entirely new. And it's like, okay, I love this challenge. I love being able to see how well my reflexes are, like how good my timing is. That's definitely one of my top ones.
Very cool. You said there were three, so I want to hear the other ones
Yeah.
too.
Okay. So the second one is Slay the Spire. That one appealed to me because it's it's another roguelike, but it is a deck building version of one. So the idea of actually building my deck for my character to use, like attack cards, defense cards, skill cards, is that it fascinated me because never thought that you can make a deck building game into a roguelike. You can't I never thought of it being hybridized like that. And
Oh,
so it was just fascinating to me and then like coming up with different deck combinations, different card strategies, and even the characters you use, they all have different like focuses for their playing style. So it's like, okay, I've gotta be creative with each one I come up with. And I guess the third one is one I actually it was actually the first game I was streamed last year, which was Lost in Random. And best way I can describe that one is, and the reason why it caught my attention is as soon as I first saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, somebody has done it. They've made a Tim Burton stop motion film into a video game. I must play this. I
Oh my
must.
god.
And it's like that alone sold me on it. It's like, yes, 1,000 times yes.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That would be right up my alley too. What's that one called again? I'm gonna have to remember
It's
that.
called Lost in Random. It's definitely a full-fledged indie title. It's really good in my opinion. I put in like a solid that took me a solid week to beat in like solid 20 hours. I'd say
Okay.
21, 22, depending on your playstyle.
Shoot, I'm gonna have to look into that one because that sounds right up my alley. I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. Huge Tim Burton fan.
Still waiting for them to make a plushie of one of the main characters. Like if they make a plushie of that little dice, because I'm not. It's not a huge spoiler. It's like, well, you have a little dice that actually walks around after you. He's got little tiny legs, little arms, and it's like I want a plushie of that so badly. If they ever make a plushie of it, I'll be the first one to say, yeah, I'm yeet my wallet at you. Please take my money.
Shut up and take my money. I love that. I love that. Well, here's another one from the community. This one's a bit of a follow up to the previous question. It's from I Kill You Pony. They would like to know which indie game character or boss is your favorite, based on how many indie games that you've played so far.
Ooh, oh no, that is a tough one because I feel like I won't claim to say that I've played the most indie games out there, but I've played a fair number of them. Ooh, I'd say I'll bounce back all the way to Shovel Knight and I'll say Plague Knight is one of
Ooh.
my favorites, especially just because of that entire. Because when Shovel Knight, a while after Shovel Knight came out, they introduced the idea of having playing actual story modes as the bosses, and so the idea of Plague Knight, and when I actually played through it, is like, oh my goodness, yes, yes, the idea of actually throwing around little like alchemy bombs, like yes, I love it. Also, just the fact that it's like, okay, I get to see how it is as one of the so-called bad guys. Okay, this is gonna be a twist. I like this twist.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I like that. So there we go. Plague Knight. That's a good choice. So here's a question that I actually have, and this is pertaining to now. Sometimes there are indie games or quote unquote indie games, but games that start off very small and become something a lot bigger. Like good examples would be like Undertale,
Mhm.
Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah.
Like these games that have become uh, a little bit more mainstream and stuff like that. Is there ever a point where you would be? Is there ever a point where a game could become too big for you to want to play it? And you can. I'm trying to think of what's a better way to phrase this question, but like, is there ever a point where you just will kind of lose interest if an indie game starts to become more mainstream or anything like that?
That's a good one because I'm trying to think of any indie games that I've seen that ever reached that sort of level. Um, the thing is though, I can't think of any indie games that have actually like that's ever happened to. Um, because I know Hollow Knight's been frequently mentioned a lot lately, but that's just more because we're waiting for a sequel.
Mm.
Outside of that, Shovel Knight, I never felt like Shovel Knight's the only one I could think of because it just became so big. But I never felt that one ever. I would ever get, I would ever shy away from it because of how popular it got. It was just to me seeing an indie game get really popular. I mean, to me that's a good thing. If I see a lot of people playing, it's like that's great. They found this wonderful game. Now, if it goes crazy, like I'm trying to think of, I can't think of any indie titles. I can only think of AAA titles.
Well, I mean, if you got to use the AAA title as an example, go for it. We won't get offended.
Because I'm trying to think of one that would fit that example. I just can't really think of any. There'll be some games that'll like I won't be able to find time for. D2, Destiny 2, I would say is one that's like I just don't find I can't find the time anymore to play it. It's
Hmm.
like I can't find myself being able to try to set up that routine again. Um, outside of that, there's very few indie games that I ever like just absolutely don't like that I ever disliked or ever grew tired of.
Gotcha.
Um, Now I will say, of course, this is just me personally, just and this is more because of seeing so many kids come into the store when I was in retail and seeing them buy the darn Fortnite cards. Fortnite just I acknowledge it exists, but that's it. That's all I'll do. It's just like I get I got sick and tired of people going like, "Yeah, I want the Fortnite cards, Fortnite cards." You get it. You want the Fortnite cards, enough with it. But that's about it. I mean, other than that, I mean, I've always, in my experience at least, most games that I open up to anybody before, and it's not, I know that's never going to be something I'm interested in, and I've never been interested in too much in PvP. If it's like challenge based or skill based, like I've seen in Dead by Daylight, I'm actually in an indie game, well, I won't say indie game, the game similar to it, Identity V,
Mm.
which also sort of that killer versus survivors. Um, those kinds of PvP I'm fine with, but Fortnite I just I can't ever get into it. That one just it's just too much shazbot going on about it, like too much drama involved. Like I can't. I'm sorry, I can't.
No, it's perfectly all right. I love that. I love to hear people's opinions on this kind of thing. That's why we have this thing here. That's why we want to have this thing here. So let me, because you've said it a few times now since we've been on the stream. This is going to be a little bit more of a personal about you.
Uh,
Uh, where did you've got kind of a catchphrase for your stream, and that's Shazbot. Where did this phrase come from? How did that come into being for you?
so fun fact is that's actually so if anybody remembers like old we're talking like older TV shows, Happy Days and Mork and Mindy. That's where I got it from. Because on one of the episodes, Robin Williams guest starred as an alien called Mork, Mork from Ork. And so the phrase word he used in place of like a swear was Shazbot. So it's like, you know what, that fits me perfectly because I'm not one to swear. I find swearing just to work up the blood too much. Is like, I could find more creative words to come up with. So like I'll use Shazbot, Shiznit. Mama Steam loves to use phrases from different sci-fi series. From the old series Farscape, she'll use what was it? Brel, Dren. There was one mini series called A Tenth Kingdom, and a phrase that like these trio of goblin siblings would use would be "suck an elf," and it's like what kind of swear is that? It was so bizarre. It was so weird. It's like she used to use that at work, and it's like throwing people off. Goramit, yeah, yes. Captain Spaulding, yes. We do use Goramit. We use some from Firefly as well. Shiny.
Yeah, I say way too many phrases from Firefly in daily conversation. Goram is one that I use quite often. So
It's a hilarious one. I mean, more people should use it. Why? Because it's harder to stay angry when you're using silly swears.
oh yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Now this isn't a question from the community, but I feel like it needs to be said because this is from Pascaroni. He just wants to say a big congrats to Steam Gray for being a great
Ah,
example of positive game and art streamer. Keep moving forward with a supportive attitude. Cheers. And
aw.
I know that you had acknowledged that in the chat before, but I felt like it still needed to be said for the
Yeah.
audio audience. So there we go. I just felt like throwing that one in there.
I'm double blushing now. Just it still surprises me. It's just I forgot when I wanted to do. I want to say it's been at least 3 months, maybe more. So I wanted to change up things because I always felt like I was getting sort of in a rut with just doing playthroughs of a game. But then it's like, you know what? What if I changed it up? I remember seeing a friend, the screen name's Look at All That Juice, and he was doing like I saw him doing like retro Mondays and the like, and so it inspired me to do like indie Thursdays. And there's like, you know what? Why don't I take a step? Watching all these art streamers, why not also do some art as well? Just like show people that hey, if you feel like inclined to do like a little scribble or a little sketch, I mean, go for it. See where it takes you. So I was like, okay, well, there's my art Fridays.
Perfect, perfect. I love that. I absolutely love that. Um, okay, so let me ask you this because a big part of Indie Games is kind of sometimes the developer themselves can be a little bit more accessible than, say, a AAA developer. Have you ever been able to interact with any of the developers for games that you've played, and what's that like, being able to kind of talk with them on, I guess, a more personal level, if you've ever been able to contact any of those devs?
I can't say that I've ever had. That said, I do notice with indie titles, depending on the developer, they'll have something. I'm trying to think. They'll usually be a little bit more personal, a little bit easier to approach, from what I've noticed and observed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also they tend to be more personal whenever they put up their dev blogs, either be on Twitter or wherever their social platform is set up, wherever they have it. They usually tend to be more upfront and more, well, let's say upfront isn't the right term I should use. I'd say, yeah, they're more approachable. They're easier. I love to hear more about the community, but also they like to encourage to see what they come up with ideas.
Hmm.
I'd say big example is Valheim. This
Yes.
I love the fact that they'll still show that there's so much being shown about like the various crazy builds and like designs that people come up with for buildings. I mean, replicas. I remember seeing so many of it in early Valheim days, and even now they still acknowledge that with coming up with more stuff, more content for creating. Okay, well, you can now create more different things with your buildings and whatnot. I remember seeing like things of replica Millennium Falcon, Hogwarts. Was it a Notre Dame
Wow.
monastery? It was like, holy shazma, for somebody to spend that kind of time and effort, but more importantly, for that to be showcased, is like, that is incredible. And just like that, a indie developer, came up with something that would allow a person to come be that creative with their buildings. It's incredible to think about.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's amazing. Cool. Well, we got another question from the community. This one is also from I Kill You Pony. They would like to know, is there an indie game that has absolutely blown your mind with the storyline while you were streaming it in front of your viewers? Do you have an example of that? A time that you can remember where you were mind blown by the story?
Shoot, I mean, honestly, like the easiest one I can think of is was Lost in Random.
Mm.
Dang, I really want to stream that one again just because it was just a blast. But that one just fascinated me because I didn't really have any inkling of what the story was going to be. I had like just a rough idea of the story as the synopsis gives. Like you're a young girl going after your sister who's been taken to another area of the world and going on this enormous journey to find out what happened. But then it also just seeing the lore that's involved with it, that's told through the story. It was incredible to think about, just to see like this entire world come forth for my eyes. I'm trying to think of another good indie game. Let's say actually Monster Sanctuary. That one's the one I finished up a week ago.
Mm.
That was incredible because it's the whole idea of, okay, the whole sort of Pokemon-esque storylines, like, okay, you're sent out in the world to capture Pokemon, these monsters, but then you're just like, wait, you're taming them, but then you're in this entire sanctuary where these monsters can live and thrive. But then it goes off into the story of, okay, this is sanctuary's been there for like centuries, and then there's other stuff involved. Okay, each of these monsters have their own sort of like history and background. And that one threw me for a loop because I was not I had a feeling like, okay, well, at some parts, like, okay, I could tell where the story was going, but then it would throw a twist, and I'm like, okay, I was not expecting that to be happening. And then when they had a DLC, I was like, okay, I was not expecting them to add further to the story than they already did before. Okay, you threw me three curveballs. Thank you. I think you knocked me out with that second one.
Okay, cool. Those are good examples. Good examples. So let me go ahead and bring you over to this topic, and this is something that I like to ask every guest so far that we've had on the confessional, and I think your perspective will be a little unique than some of the other people that we've talked to, and that's this kind of idea of burnout. This is something that we as content creators all kind of struggle with from here, or from time to time, just struggle with a little bit of burnout. Is that something that you've experienced in your content creation, and how is it different for you as a VTuber? Because there's obviously, like, you're still a person behind this avatar, but do you feel like it's a little bit different for you, or how might that be a little bit different from you for you if it is?
I was waiting for that question to be asked because I watching the other episodes. Like, yep, I had a feeling it was gonna be asked. Oh, that's actually something I have been recently feeling like it has gnawed on me at a few more than a like more often than not. Not to the point where it's like, okay, I think I gotta feel like I got taken a immediate vacation, but I have felt times like where I don't know, probably this was true for many of us, like early days of Wonderlands, like, yeah, I think many of us like that burnout was like very, very, very like very much a like concern of ours because like, oh yeah, we played a lot, but then it's like, okay, well, what else is there to do? I mean, in my case, it's more of okay, I've got these game, I've got like I always got a large library to go through, but then it's like, okay, but what if I want to like take things a step back? And that's actually a reason why I also started up doing the art on Fridays and also changed up to doing like indie games. Is I felt that if I just did nothing but playthroughs, I'd get completely and utterly worn out.
Mm.
And I felt like if I introduced like doing indie games was then like, okay, I can give myself a bit of a break. But at the same time, I can also really showcase why I originally started streaming was showcase these smaller titles that people may not know of or heard of, and yet there's still fantastic games out there. And it's like, okay, well, if you want something that can keep you occupied for hours and hours on end without spending too much, well, here's a good option. And like Monster Sanctuary is like that one, 50 was it's 50 hours to go through. I think it was either 50 or 60. But at the same time, it's like I still feel that itch to go back and play it more just because there's like wondering, okay, with all the information and knowledge I have on building up my team of monsters, like how different would it be if I went back and actually played through it knowing that information? And of course, doing the art is like, okay, well, if I tone it down and give myself art to do, like show art to do on Fridays, well then I've got a little bit way of not only relax, but also shift gears, give myself an extra day to rest, recuperate my mind, and then get ready to do like do the playthroughs again, starting up the next week. It
Mm.
also gives me a chance to just like explore and just like de-stress, just decompress, and like and just like reflect back on what I've done during the week, but also just also give me a chance to like be able to talk to my community a bit more, a bit easier than like, okay, well, I'd love to talk to y'all guys, but right now I'm in the middle of a boss fight and I'm sweating bullets and I don't know if I'm gonna make it.
Uh, so, what would be some tips then that you would give? Because obviously, I've had everyone kind of give their advice if they were going to give advice to fellow content creators or even just everyday people that are experiencing burnout, whether that be at work or with school or something like that. What would you say would be your number one piece of advice for people that have experienced burnout, um, for dealing with those feelings and helping them move through that?
I'd say biggest piece is definitely have a way or something, even if it's be it a hobby, be it something silly to do. Like for myself, it's like I'll watch on some occasions I'll watch just like random little clips from other VTuber streams just to like laugh and whatnot. Find some way to de-stress, to take your mind off of concerns about oh dear Lord, what I'm going to stream next. Just find some way to, like, if you have a hobby, if it's like reading stories, reading books, do that. Whatever you have, have a hobby, something, a good, healthy hobby that'll help you to break away from everything and just like let your mind de-stress. Just let, concerns and whatnot, let them fade away and give yourself enough time to rest, recuperate mentally, spiritually, whichever way possible. And then that'll let you have enough of a chance to get a breather, and then you can go, okay, okay, I have my little break, now I have my little siesta. As Mama Steen often do, she loves to when she had the books She'd love to read her Pern books just to be able to imagine herself on her queen dragon just riding out into the skies. Is like, you know what? Any way like that, anything that's healthy, any hobby you have, as long as it's a healthy, good hobby, go ahead, like, splurge on it. Veg out, let your brain air out. That's the best way I found to actually really combat it. It's just like have something, even if it's like say a stress-free game or like something chill to do. Go ahead, go for it. Take a day, just chill out, veg out, just enjoy that hobby.
I like that. That's the first time I've ever heard somebody put it as let your brain air out. But you know what? That's probably honestly that's probably one of the better ways I think I've heard that put in a long time. I'm gonna steal that and I'm gonna use that because
Yeah,
that's
more than welcome to. The more people that use it, the better.
let your brain air out. I absolutely adore that. All right, one more quick question before we wrap things up here, Steam. If you were an ice cream, what flavor would you be and why?
I'd be like, I'd say cookies and cream, but we'll take a step further. We add like a double cookies and cream, like somehow add even more Oreo cookies into there, or like, I'd say actually reverse it. Okay, still have the Oreo cookies, but have like the vanilla ones, but then the ice cream itself is like a Dutch chocolate.
Ooh, hoo, hoo, hoo.
I'll say a reverse Oreo cookies and cream.
Reverse cookies and cream. I like it. And why? Why would you say that?
Oh, it's well, I'll say this, and probably people found out if they haven't already found out already. Just cookies and cream is one of my favorite flavors.
Ah,
It's like one of the original flavors, and it's just something simple, straightforward, but just gonna have a lot of fun with it. It's a nice pick me up, and just another of a sugar rush to go like, okay, ooh, I got the endorphins and whatnot flowing. It's like but not to the point where it's like, okay, I'm on a high, and then crash. Just that nice little bump of energy, just that nice little sweet little tasty treat, and it's like, okay, well, we don't have any Oreo cookies or any milk, but I have the Oreo cookies and cream ice cream. Well, there I go. I don't need either of those. I got the ice cream.
perfect. Yeah, and having been to a Steam Gray stream myself, I can absolutely say it is definitely that little pick me up of sugar that everybody could possibly need. So I think that's a very apt description of yourself, sir. Very apt. Well, Steam, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We are running out of time here on the Confessional, but before we go, this is the shameless plug section of the show, so please, where can our audience go to find out more about you and to support your content?
Yep, they can always go to my Twitch. Like I always put it there. It's my twitch.tv/SteamGray. Do not forget the underscore. I don't know if there's anybody else who's got the similar name, but yeah, always remember the underscore. You can also find me on Twitter, which is pretty much it's nearly the same. If you put in Steam Gray, it should still have me pop up, even though I spelled it differently. It should still have me pop up. Outside of that, slowly going to start building up the Instagram to put my art up there. Then finally, of course, my YouTube, which I don't have memorized. It's one of the ones I don't have memorized, but it's pretty easy to find me through there. Just do my Twitch channel, and then I'll have it listed underneath there for areas to find me at. It'll be should be. I forgot what I put it over there, but I know it's over there. I'll have to quickly do it. Yeah, I think it's just on my about, and then YouTube there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Steam, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure to get to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much for being here. But everyone, it is now time for the temple to close its doors. Thank you all for being here this evening. Thank you, Steam Gray, for joining us this evening. Don't forget, folks, if you want to get more confessional in your life, make sure you give us a follow on YouTube. You can check out old episodes there. You can check out who is going to be coming up next if you follow at ClericCast or join our Discord server, !Discord, if you are sitting here in the Twitch stream tonight, or check it out on the YouTube channel. And also, you'll be able to download the Confessional podcast wherever you get your amazing content, whether that be on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, any of those amazing podcast sites. You'll be able to get the Confessional there. Make sure you guys leave us a comment down below who you might want to see come onto the Confessional, as well as if you have any questions that didn't get answered tonight. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us, guys, and don't forget, be excellent to each other. See you next week.
Take care, everybody.